All right, well, welcome back to Yoga for Beginners. We're in week 2 today. And as I was saying at the beginning, the preamble, it's interesting because there's just so much to share, and just to kind of bring it down to 1 or 2 topics is a challenge. But today, our focus is going to be around yoga and strength, and why is that important, and what are some of the functions. But we're also going to cover a few other things. So first of all, some basic yoga lingo. I like to introduce this at the beginning of the practice because there's a lot of words and lingo in yoga that seems kind of out there sometimes. So just going to demystify some of the lingo that you might hear and ask you if there are any words that you always wonder what that means. If I can answer it, great. If not, I will let you know either next week, or I'll send you an email with that update. So some of the yoga lingo for sure. Next, we'll go to, let's see, this is where I have. So some of the yoga terms that you might have heard in the past and always wondered what it meant. Obviously, Sanskrit is a big one. This is the ancient language of India, and Hindu scriptures are written in Sanskrit, and poems, and most of the literature, which is thousands of years old, is written in this language. And it's actually when you hear meditation often that has Sanskrit, it's sung. So it's interesting that a language is not just a language in yoga. The Sanskrit language is often sung to a melody. So when you hear that chanting, that's actually speaking the language of Sanskrit. Drishti is a term I like to use a lot. You see it and hear it a lot in balanced poses. And drishti is an interesting term around not necessarily staring, but gazing. And it's almost like when you look at something and everything goes blurry, but you still have that gaze about you. Drishtis are really important when we do balance, because they're actually the function of the brain balancing us within our eyes, like with looking through our vision. So you might hear me say, follow your drishti. This is following your gaze. And it's not a staring at, but it's more of a nebulous kind of action. Chakras, one of my favorites. Chakras are when you actually look at the word in Sanskrit, it means wheels or spinning. And it's said to have in our body 7 different entities, energy sources called the chakras. And it starts from the root chakra and goes right to the crown chakra. And each one of these have a corresponding organ, a physical, emotional, and psychological states of beings, all influence these different. So when we talk about clearing our chakras or clearing our energy field, it's specifically on a linear path from the root, our tailbone, all the way to the crown of our head. And you could dedicate an entire year on all of the chakras. And I actually do a 7-week chakra series. It's a lot of fun, and we actually wear the corresponding color every year or every class when we do this. And if you've never done a chakra inspired class, I highly recommend it, and I'll let you know when we're doing ours next. Sun salutation. We've all done a sun salutation in one form or another if you've ever practiced yoga. It consists of about 10 to 12 poses. And we're going to be sharing the purpose of the sun salutation. It's basically a warm-up. It builds internal heat in our body and prepares our body for the practice of balancing and strength. And today we're going to actually be dissecting the sun salutation. So we're going to take every piece of the sun salutation, work on it a little bit, and then we're going to pull it together in a class. So lots of hints and tips in sun salutation that we even learned from last week. Namaste, big popular word, and they actually have, a lot of memes now around namaste in bed and namaste right here, that kind of thing. It's actually more of a greeting to each other, about bowing to each other's humanity, their energy within each other. And you often hear it repeated after different, at the beginning and at the ends of yoga practices. You could say too that it's way overused. I'm seeing more and more in yoga practices with some of the greats. They don't even use namaste at the end of a practice because it's been so overused, and it's like anything else. When you say it over and over again, like I love you, right? It becomes rote. So instead of saying namaste, there's a lot more praise and connections with each other that we can use. So this one's kind of there and not. Om. This is a really interesting, first of all, Om is actually 3 sounds, 3 syllables together, A, U, and M, A, O, M. And it's symbolic of triads, quite frankly. And if you think of triads in other cultures, other history, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, speech, mind, breath, father, mother, child, these are really an idea of spirituality in these triads. And as it's followed often by the chant Shanti, 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 or Lord Shiva. And there's often chanted at the end of yoga practices, and we chant to the word Om. And there's a vibration to this as well, which is meant to kind of deepen your connection with yourself, your 3 pieces within each other. Mudras, really cool. I'm gonna talk about little mudras, and mudras are basically yoga for your hands. And they literally mean seals or stamps. And when you think about your hand, the mudras actually break down to fire for your thumb, air, space, earth, and water. And when you see yoga practices, you might see them like this, you might see them like this. There's one that's really cool, and it's one where your arms are, let's all try this. Take your hand and make it out really, really wide, so as far as you can, turn it over, and then pull your index finger down and up. And then there's a bottom hand underneath. So it goes just like this. And this represents the opening of a lotus flower grounded by earth, because in earth, the lotus flowers are quite muddy underneath, but they pertain to this beautiful flower that comes out, and it mirrors life, right? When life in general is down and dirty and ugly and sad and not good. And even in the mud, the beauty comes out. I love this practice of mudras because there's a lot of different ones. Another one I really like is when the thumb, the pad of the thumb and the tip of the index finger come together, and then we turn under, and this is often on our laps. And this practice of this particular mudra talks about how we are connected to earth, and self is always connected. So index finger representing self, thumb representing earth, and there's always the circular motion of energy. And the 3 fingers that drip down are all the characteristics that we no longer serve us. So hate, judgment, ridicule, jealousy, comparison. So when our mudras are like this, it actually sets the stage to stay with earth and the boundaries that we set with ourselves, and then drip out everything that we don't want in our lives. So mudras are really cool. Again, a whole science on its own. And everything from those lotus flower offering to those grounded, underneath roots that are really important. We're going to do a meditative mudra at the end of our practice today, so I'll leave that for a surprise. Any other terms out there that you're wondering, oh, I wonder what blah, blah, blah meant, and I never really knew? I just want to open it up. If you have any, you can type it in the chat, or those are kind of your basic, go-to yogic terms that you'll hear again and again. If anything comes to you, just let me know. And I want to welcome Maureen, who just joined us. Hi, Mo. Okay, so the crux of what we're going to now. In our practice today, we're really going to talk to the idea of why focusing on strength. The reality is that every year we lose muscular strength. This is not probably news to you, but the interesting part is there's actually a term, a medical term for this, where it shortens the life expectancy compared to individuals that don't use and learn to strengthen their muscles. The gradual loss of muscle mass we experience can actually, as you know, limit our abilities like sports, picking up grandchildren, picking up your kids, even simple tasks like carrying the groceries or taking groceries and putting them up into the shelf. That's a really strong, especially when they're cans, and you don't realize that until you kind of hurt yourself. And typically when we do something like that, we have to brace in the center to extend the arms or the limbs. And when that happens, it decreases our mobility. So we are less likely to be mobile when we haven't the strength to support our skeletal system, which is one of the major reasons of actually strengthening our muscles. But also, as we grow older, our range of motion is limited. If you look at individuals that you know, are very late in the stages of life, they tend to shuffle because they're afraid of falling. And when you walk widely, right, that requires a lot more balance, a lot more stability. But when you shuffle, it's smaller. So the idea of strengthening our muscles actually allows us to be more mobile. And that's just one example of many. And so when you have weaker muscles and you have less ability to move, your incidences of falls and fractures are far higher. And so understanding how that all works, very important to really protect us as we have more birthdays, to have a stronger stance. And that's what yoga really helps with. And further to that, when you think about, a couple of different terms I like to just highlight is the difference between toning and strengthening. Toning, very important. It's basically what your muscles look like when they're relaxed. And you could see this, particularly when you work upper body, arms. Arms are, tonality in arms is very easy to come by because they're smaller muscles. So it doesn't take a lot to tone the muscles of the arms, and opposed to strength, which is really this idea of contraction and expansion and the ability of your muscle to respond to that type of resistance, and also own body weight training. So why strengthen? What's the purpose behind it? And how does yoga make it happen? Well, as I mentioned before, hinge movement is really this idea of flexion, which is coming in, and extension, which is going out. It doesn't matter what the muscles are. It could be your arm muscles, your legs, your hips. Having muscles that are conducive to stabilizing your joints is really important, so that your hinge movement, hence your range of motion, can be greater and more meaningful when it comes to the simple things like walking. It also gives you a deep connection to the muscle tissue. So when we understand, for example, the belly of the bicep, it's two muscles that come together. And when we have those two muscles connecting in, say, an extension and a flexion, you understand that having that kind of contraction on the muscle is what actually causes the movement of the hinge, but also the connection to the tissue of muscle. And we want to access the tissue of muscle in order to strengthen it. And, you know, strength doesn't require weight training. Strength requires that your own body can maintain its skeletal structure, its organs, its circulatory structure, even our nervous system through our spine is required. And it doesn't take weights to do this. You can use your own body weight. Strength can also be targeted at a specific group of muscles. Even the simplest poses can help tone the upper and lower body. And posture. Nothing says power and confidence like posture. So understanding that, for example, that the muscles or the bones and muscles in your back body, those sliding scapular muscles, when we have them engaged, we automatically lift and lighten the chest, and also lift and lighten the issues that we have with tight muscles in our front body by introducing our back body and maintaining a strong posture. Posture is so important. And the more you do yoga, the more you understand how posture acts. And I was a sloucher for a very long time. And when I got to understanding posture and yoga, it's uncomfortable now for me to be slouched. I have to be upright and feel that in my body to feel comfortable. So it actually comes with more practice. Can't stress enough agility. If you think about just the act of aging and the act of movement, being agile. So how do you bring your foot forward, or how do you slide sideways, or how do you extend your body so that it's long and then come back in with it again? Agility is so important. When you think about things like walking through the grocery store and you're walking out with grocery bags and something comes in front of you and you're not agile enough to move fast enough not to trip or fall. I know so many people that have had falls with their pets walking their dog. The dog goes in front of them and they're not agile enough to contraindicate what is happening. It also works with balance. Trail running, for example, if you've done any walking or hiking in trails, those roots come up and you don't even see them half the time. And I know that strengthening through yoga allows you to be more balanced and fall less when those twigs show up in everyday life. So really important, all of that. Love this quote because strength isn't just about your muscles, right? And this quote came to me and I'm like, oh yeah, this is perfect, right? Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strength. And when you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength. There's so many different quotes that are around this, but the idea of embracing strength as it pertains to yoga is practicing on your mat actually practices or engages us in life in general. So when we go and do a killer practice and go, wow, that was really an engaging, muscular, balanced type of posture, you can take all of that learning that you feel within that posture off the mat with life. So I think that it's really important to understand that strength isn't just something that happens in our muscles, it happens in our heart, and the heart is a muscle. So when we can practice strength within our own heart, imagine the strength that we can bring out to the world, to our loved ones, to challenging times, to challenging people, right? So when we strengthen our muscles, it's not just about the physical, but it's also about what happens inside of us when we can overcome. So those are kind of the basics of strength. Again, like I said, I had like 1,000 things I wanted to tell you about, but those are some of the low yoga lingos and whatnot. I'm going to stop sharing now. Okay. And we're going to go to our mats. We're going to start on our mats. And I would like to have you just stand. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to spotlight me so everyone can see me. And I'm going to go right up to the mats. So we're going to break down sun salutation before we actually start to practice. So in our sun salutation, we start with Tadasana. And Tadasana is known as standing pose. And it's got a bit of a nomenclature to it, but I want to introduce to you a standing Tadasana that's more than standing, right? So coming up to your mat, this is the beginning of a sun salutation. So hands are extended, palms reach forward. And this standing posture, when you look down and lift and separate your toes, you start to engage the bottom of your feet, really important, because the arches of your feet actually help you with balance. And they also send this kind of kinetic chain up the legs into and below the belly button into the pelvic floor, and then through the spine into the shoulders where your arms reach down. Now, when you look at our bodies in this position, this is the basic posture of our skeletal system. This is our natural standing position. And what we ask in sun salutation is to start with this. Often you'll see the hands together. This is the mudra of Anjali, the one that brings our hemispheres together, and it comes from the heart. So this is our heart center mudra. It often starts like this. All right, so that's the first kind of posture in sun salutation. We often sweep the arms overhead. This is often called either sun reaching salutation or an extended Tadasana. And then when the hands come together again, it passes the heart. And what I like to bring to light is that we don't just come forward, but we bend the knees here. Remember, we talked about ground reaction force last week. This is about getting energy from the earth. And then we take this forward fold, but my knees are bent here. So when my hands can come down to the ground or to the blocks, remember your blocks are very, very useful when we come into forward folds. The knees are bent. Now I want you to have the difference here. So knees are bent. Now when you straighten the legs, do you feel that pressure in the lower back? And that is really not necessary. It's not necessary to strain the lower back. All you have to do is bend the knees. And when we bend the knees in a forward fold, we give the ability for the back, the spine, to be long. And that's the whole point. It's to get space between the joints and support it with the muscles. So when the knees are bent, we're able to bring a little more length to the spine. And you're able to actually loosen the head and shoulders when we're in this forward fold. So that's forward fold. And then often we come halfway up. And once again, when we come halfway up, I like to put my hands either on my shin or my thighs, or I kind of move up. But that forward fold, once again, knees are still bent. The idea is to lengthen from the crown of your head to your tailbone. So if you're doing this with straight legs, you're higher, first of all, you're putting more pressure on the lower back. But if we're here with bent legs, we actually can support this halfway lift, right? The next one in the forward fold is, in the sun salutation is plank. Now, when we talk about plank, there's many, many versions of plank. There's a full plank with the arms extended. There's a plank on the knees and a plank on the feet. Regardless of what plank you choose, it starts, once again, knees are bent. So I have to come down really low. I've got tight hamstrings, so I'm gonna have to come down really low. And when I place my hands on the ground, in any pose, we did this again last week, where your hands are on the ground, you wanna really spread your fingers and push down into the pads of your fingers and your knuckles. Now, before I go into plank, I want you to realize that your upper body is already in plank. Hand, elbow, and shoulder are all lined up. And I am firing up by pushing down into the fingers and the knuckles. And I'm pulling the muscles around all the bones and the joints to keep them really, really integrity of the joint itself. So when I go back to a plank, okay, in my high plank, my arms are already where they were, okay? The low plank doesn't change my arm position at all. All it does is put a little less stress on the lower back, particularly if you have back pain, okay? And then as we bend the elbows, we come to what we call chaturanga. Again, if you have any issues with your back, you are better to have yourself with the knees down on the ground. And then when you bend the elbows, the body comes down as one plane, okay, and comes into cobra. Okay, so I went from here to chaturanga, which is really difficult, right to cobra. And the cobra lifts my chest up. Okay, in cobra, the focal point is the hips to the ground. I'm gonna lift my hands off the ground with you. I'm hoping you're doing this with me, all right? And then I like to go from cobra to tabletop. So you're going to push down into your pads of fingers and your knuckles. Once again, firing up the muscles in your upper arms. Curl the toes under. Push off using the strength of the arms. And then I find myself in tabletop to curl the toes under, send the hips to the heels. And now I lift the knees off the ground. And I'm going to walk in a little bit because I found my stance a little short. But notice in downward facing dog, I've got a lot of bend in the knees. And why is that? Because I have tight hamstrings. So if you think having long legs, heels to the ground is where you need to be, you got to rethink what your body's asking you to do. Right, so here is my downward facing dog. Now, the next one is a lunge. All right, so from a lunge with the knees bent, again, I'm going to have more traction with knees bent than with them straight, right? Like coming forward with one leg straight, that's hard. In fact, impossible because the leg's not able to come under the body. So to come into a lunge, this is a little trick I'm going to share with you. Everyone in downward facing dog, okay, you're going to bend the knees, but before you move the legs, you're going to start rounding your back and then drawing the foot forward. So it's not about coming forward with the foot on its own. The knee will be bent and I'm going to kind of waterfall the body up and over so the foot can come forward. Right. If the foot doesn't land under the knee, you're going to take the foot and help it, move it. Right. And then the next one is just a bend in the back leg. Again, looking for that ground force reaction. Bend in the back leg and a step forward back into a forward fold with the knees bent. And then pushing into the feet is how I lift all the way back up into Tadasana. All right, so that's the dissection of a sun salutation. Before I go any further, any questions? I'm just going to unmute you all because that's a tough one. It seems like it's easy, but it's not. There's a lot going on into a sun salutation. In fact, it's about 12 different moves. Questions? How about that foot forward? Hi, Mo. Yep, you have a question? Go for it. Oh, you got to unmute.
Hi there.
I can hear you now.
Okay, I have trouble making the transition from Cobra right into tabletop. Can you just review that?
Sure thing. So again, in Cobra, okay, hands are on the ground now. Now, Cobra, you can kind of instigate the back. Fingertips are almost at the tip of your shoulder here. Then we push down. As you curl the toes under, we use the upper body to come to tabletop first. Now, the knees are a little further back. You can move them in if you like, always. Okay, but it's basically a tabletop, but the most important thing is that the arms are lined up. So we come from hands on the ground, we push the hands a little further to our chest, so just about the nipple line, we call it, and then you push up and then you become, so it is difficult, and it's because it's coming from the bottom up and you're trying to reverse that. So it does require a lot of strength, particularly in the back of your arms. So triceps, again, they're not big muscles. There's 3 of them, so they work in coercion with each other, but they're not big. So you really have to maintain that push back up. It's like a reverse push-up, which is very difficult. Is that helpful, Mo?
Yes, thanks.
No problem. Any other questions before we start the practice? Are you excited? All right, well, let's start our practice now. I'm going to go back to mute you. Mute all. All right, I'm going to start you, as always, with a seat. Okay, so go ahead and take a comfortable seat. I'm just going to sit on my block to start, and it's about just finding your center before we actually begin. So it's so important to come into the center body your own space, your own quiet body. So go ahead and take that comfortable seat any way you like. I like to sit cross-legged. Sometimes you bring your heels to your hips. That works too. But I'm going to just ask you to pay attention to your tailbone at this moment and consider walking up your tailbone, almost like you're taking a little hike up your tailbone into the lower spine, into the mid-spine, and come to the pedestal of your spine where your head rests itself. And not out of habit, but out of kind of a known or obvious motion. Consider balancing your head as you find it at the top of your spinal cord. And from the moment you have that connection, go ahead and introduce the soft palate of your roof of your mouth and to the use of gravity on your face to soften your space, soften your gaze, soften all of the tension. And notice again how the breath finds you. Notice the temperature, notice the texture. Go inward. And bringing your hands to Anjali Mudra again. Bringing your palms together, bringing your fingertips together, but leaving space in between the hands, like you're holding a little hummingbird and you don't want to hurt it. You're just kind of holding on to it in a gentle way. I want you to feel that gentleness and make a small intention to be this gentle with yourself today in this practice, with what you know. And as we flow through our practice, I will remind you, I will bring you back to this notion of this gentle being, not just between your hands, this imaginary little hummingbird, but the gentle being that you find yourself in. Let the arms float to either side. And let's just take a gentle twist to one side, warming up the spine here. Looking over the shoulder, coming back to center. And then looking over to the other side, acting like a rotisserie for the spine. And then back to center. And then just kind of swing side to side, bringing yourself into a little bit of rotation through the body, kind of warming up from the core. And the next time your arms come over, just lengthen them and cross side to side. So now introducing how the shoulders are engaging. And then pausing here. Take your arms and extend them as wide as you can, and then bring them overhead. Okay, using your muscles of the shoulders, squeeze and put your top of your arm bone in your sockets by drawing them into their sockets, and then extend them out. Squeeze, draw them in, lift, extend them out. Do this a few times, understanding that every time you contract, okay, everything comes in. And when you expand, it reaches out. Just like the muscles pull in to stabilize the joint and then extend out to stretch. Nice. And then just release the arms. This is a little example. Okay, take the legs and just float your body all the way up. I'm going to take you to standing at the top of your mat to Tadasana again. Hands come to either side of the body. We're going to extend the arms and drip them down into the fingertips and allow the head to balance. Just like when we were seated, allow the head to balance as though it's up on top of, okay, the cathedral of your head and throat. Let's draw the arms all the way up into that tall mountain. All right, and then take the arms and reach them up again, and then drop them down into the shoulders. Reach them up again and draw them down to the shoulders. Reach them up again. Bring your fingertips together. And as you draw your hands and heart together, we're going to drop down into a little intense pose here. Okay, this is another variation of sun salutation. It's Surya Namaskara B. Okay, it's just a way to introduce another piece into your sun salutation. Now push into your feet and then inhale, extend up. Squeeze the shoulder muscles and draw yourself back down again. Feel the core start to engage. Inhale, push up again, warming the body up. And then exhale, come back down. Now keep going down. Again, knees are bent, hands come to the ground. Okay, and with the knees bent, head, shoulders are relaxed. This is your standing forward fold, or Uttanasana. Now, play around with this yourself. Extend the legs and bend them. As you do, notice how that trickle effect happens to the lower back. You're gonna stay with the legs bent, head low. Put your hands on the ground as though you are already in plank. So for some, that means a really big bend in the knees, and that's okay. Okay, pushing down into the fingers and the knuckles, go ahead and take the steps back to come into a high or low plank. Now from here, when we bend the elbows, we're acting on the muscles at the back of the arms, the shoulders, and we drop to the hips and we lift up here into Cobra. Now, here, the muscles of the back are calling you. Pull the hands off the mat and extend through the crown of your head. Feel the muscles wrapping themselves around the spine into the shoulder blades. Move the hands a little closer to the chest, so a little more towards the nipple line. Push down into the pads of the fingers and the knuckles. Here, we curl the toe under. We're gonna push up, up, up. Here's your tabletop. And we transition the hips to the heels and lift up into a downward facing dog. Again, this downward facing dog brings itself from the crown of the head to your tailbone. So the muscles of the core expand and contract and hold it. Here, the shoulder girdle, the muscles around the shoulders are contracted to support. Here, the hips are supported. We bend the knees again. Here we go. We're going to take this slowly, kind of waterfall the body up. We're going with the right foot right between the hands. Drop the back knee. So we land here where the knee is over the ankle. If it's not, you're going to grab your ankle and move it so that it's under the knee. Stacked joints are safe joints. And now all we're going to do here is curl the back toe under, lift the knee off the ground, and step forward, back into your forward fold with the knees bent generously. And here we climb to the shins and pause, pick up your tailbone. Again, knees are still bent. Push into the feet, root to rise, come back to your tall mountain, and bring your hands to heart center. Again, capturing that hummingbird, that gentleness, that being kind to others and to self. Coming to the other side, we'll lift up again. Inhale, tall mountain, reach the fingertips to the ceiling without moving anything but the shoulder muscles. Pull the top of your arm bones back into the sockets. Feel that difference again. Reach up, extend the muscles, and then contract them, put them into the shoulders. Bring the fingertips together. Bring the hands back to your heart. And as we take the knees to bend, we come back to that forward fold. Take a moment here to see what it's like to let the face, even the crown of your head, feel and experience the effects of gravity. Now we come halfway up. I'm only coming to the shins, so the knees are still bent. The knees are still bent. The tailbone rises, so I still have that length through the back of the thigh. It doesn't matter that the knees are bent. Bring the hands to the earth. Before we go back to plank, set the upper body up. Push into the fingers, push into the knuckles. Squeeze the arm bones, squeeze the arm bones with the muscles, and then step back into high or low push-up. It doesn't matter which. As we transition, okay, I want you to pull the arm bones together so that the eye of the elbow, the front of the elbow, or sorry, the inner side of the elbow points to the third and middle finger. As you push down, you're going to feel the contraction in the shoulders. There's chaturanga, and then you'll float the chest up into cobra. Lift the arms off the mat. Feel the muscles of the back working. As you push into the pads of your fingers and the knuckles, hands are about nipple line, curl the toes under. You're going to use the arms to push the entire body up. There's your tabletop, and then we float to your bent kneed downward facing dog. Enjoy the length of the spine more than the length of the legs. The sides bodies become your focus. From here, with the knees bent, you're going to look forward, and we're going to water. It's the left leg that's going to come forward now. You're going to waterfall the body up to put that left leg forward. Look forward. Bend the back knee. Check out the knee and ankle alignment. Is it above your ankle? If not, grab the back of your foot and put it there. Looking up, curl the back toe under, lift the knee off the ground, bend the back knee, and then step forward, forward, forward. Again, using the energy from earth to move us. Push down into the knees, root to rise, come all the way up, and then bring your hands to heart center. Okay, coming through the flow again, this time landing in one of our strongest standing poses, warrior. Inhale and lift. Exhale, fold forward, bend the knees. Hands come to the earth. Inhale, float to the shins or thighs. But notice I've still got a bend in my knees no matter where I come with my hands. Exhale, fold forward, bend the knees. Put your upper body in plank already. And then from there, step or walk back into high or low plank. As you bend the elbow, feel the force of the muscles, drawing yourself down to cobra. Pause here. Inhale, exhale. With the toes curled under, use the power of the upper body to push back up into tabletop and then downward facing dog. Okay, from here, bend the knees, look at the top of your mat. We're gonna waterfall the right foot forward and pause. Now from here, I'm gonna take that back foot and bring it parallel to the small of the mat. Okay, so I'm gonna just walk the body up. Now I'm in warrior two legs here. Toes on that front foot pointing to the small end of the mat. Toes of the back foot pointing to the front of the screen or to me. So now think about the muscles at work here. Inner thighs pull in and around and hold the muscles around the hip. Squeezing the inner thigh by pushing down the big toe of the front foot causes this chain reaction. So we are squeezing and using and maintaining all the muscles all the way up through the leg. Yeah. Now the glute also squeezing, your glutes, your butt also squeezing to maintain the integrity of the hip joint. On this side, on that long toe on the back, the muscles around the knee are holding it in place right now, right? So we're pulling up through that whole kinetic energy of this side and squeezing the butt on this side. So the muscles contracting around the hips are stabilizing our hips in this posture. Now, as we draw the arms open parallel to the ground, the squeezing of the muscles comes out. And as you do that, notice how the chest kind of gives itself up and opens up. Now, all you're going to do here is squeeze the muscles of the shoulders, turn the palms up, feel the biceps here, and then pull them back down. Okay, big, strong change here. That front arm, so the hand, for me, it's the right with the right foot on. I'm going to drop it onto the top of my thigh. The top arm will come up and then it will come overhead. Now you feel the fascia pulling up, but the strength of the legs hasn't changed. The integrity of the muscle squeezing is still there. Stay here for another breath. Exhale, there's a contraction happening here. Now the shoulders away from my ears by force, by squeezing of the shoulder blades. One more breath here. And lengthen the top leg, bring your hands to your hips and bring both toes forward. Toe heel them in a little bit and just give yourself a little break here, side to side. So one of the strongest poses we can take, one of the strongest elements of strength work is in any of the standing poses. And we've picked Warrior Two today. Okay, so we're just going to switch to the other side. Now my left foot pointing to the small of the mat. My right foot comes parallel to this side of the mat. And now I'm going to bend. But as I bend into that front leg, I'm thinking about rolling and squeezing the muscles up from the inner thigh here. Again, the integrity of the posture requires the contraction of the muscles to support the hips, to support the knee on the backside as well. And as we push down with our feet, that muscle energy comes all the way up. Now we bring the arms to Warrior Two. Again, pull the shoulders in and back. You're going to feel the chest open up here. Now that back arm becomes the lift. The front arm comes into the top of the thigh and the arm moves overhead. Now, once again, the integrity of the shoulder, pull the shoulder back into the girdle. So now we have a strong, stable shoulder. And now that line is quite clear from the fingertip to the armpit to the hip to the outside of the foot. There's a lot happening here. We're also drawing our chest forward by lifting out of the joint of that shoulder that's on the ground. One more breath here, contraction happens, and then lift all the way up, up, up. Extend the leg, both toes forward, toe heel in a little bit, and then just come side to side. So we did two warrior poses, one way, one the other way. How is the heart rate? I'm going to suggest that it's a little high. Why? Because we've used the contracting muscles, right, to hold the posture, which meant the heart is also a muscle and it was contracting. So it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's strong and it requires just tension. Pause here. Toe heel, feet together, and we come to standing. Now, strength is a big part of balance. So we're going to practice balance here. Balance with strength. Come back to Tadasana, hands to either side of the body. Now have a look down at the feet, lift and separate your toes because we know that is strength, and in balance, the more we have on the ground, the more ability we have to balance. It's like a tripod, right? With three wide legs, we are able to balance on that. Good, stay here for a breath. Now, what I'd like you to do is push deeply into the right foot and try not to shift your weight to the right, but lift the left heel. Now bring it down. So if you lift the left heel and dumped into the right foot, do you see how this now is actually quite harmful for the hip? We want to extend, use the muscles of the joints, okay, around the hip to squeeze and draw that contraction to stabilize the hip. Okay, so all this is, hands will come to heart center. This makes it a little more interesting. Okay, maintain the integrity by squeezing harder the muscles of the right side body. Okay, and then just lift the left knee. There it is, balance. Pause here. Now this is kind of the base of many moves. We're going to stay here. I'm just going to ask you to open the leg up to the side and then take the toe and bring it to the inside of the ankle on the foot. Okay, this is tree pose, right? This is about maintaining the integrity of the squeezing on one side so that we can remain balanced. Now this is where your drishti comes in. Look forward, gaze at nothing in particular, but feel like your gaze is tethering you. One more breath here. Inhale the knee up, inhale it forward, tap the toe down, and release. Nice work, shake it out. The muscles of the right foot, okay, should be challenged right now. So balance was a lot of strength in that, yes? We're gonna try the other side. Same thing, feet side by side, hands dripping down. Now find your gaze here. Let's experiment. Let's see what that gaze does for our balance. Okay, stay here. Again, that drishti is like your tether point to the earth. Okay, now from here, squeeze the muscles on the left side body and lift the right heel. Pause here. Can you feel that chain reaction coming from the foot, the arch of the foot, all the way up the shin, the calf, into the lower belly? Let's bring the hands to heart center. Keep resting your gaze, your drishti. Push deeper into the left foot, lift the right knee. Pause here. Quiet the tension with your breath. Okay? And then from here, open the leg up, pause, bring the big toe down to the ground, to the inside of the ankle. Keep squeezing and pushing down with that left foot. It's your savior. And unwrapping this, lift the knee, bring it back to center. You're squeezing still, and bring the toe down, and then release. Nice, and then just give yourself a little swing of the legs and hips. So it's good to kind of flush the muscles, flush the joints after doing a strong standing pose like that. Nicely done. We're going to come to the tops of our mats again. So with balance, strength is of the utmost importance, right? So that was in a standing balance pose. And it comes to us in everyday life when we just walk, right? Balance. Feet are under the knees, knees under the hips. Come back to Tadasana. We're going for it. We're going for a full sun salutation. And then we take it to the earth. Inhale and lift. Engage the muscles of the shoulders. Draw them into the body. Take a seat. Start to bend the knees. Draw your hands to Anjali Mudra, hands to heart center, and then bring your fingertips to the ground. Feel the release of the lower back with bigger bend in the knee. Bring the hands to the shins. Extend the legs only in as much as you feel it in the back of your thighs. Bring your hands to the earth. Bend your knees more. Push into the hands as though you're already in a plank position. So engage the upper body strength now, and then take that step, walk back into high or low push-up. Using the strength of the back body, pull the shoulders to the ears, pull the arm bones closer together, and then bend the elbows, come into chaturanga, and then lift to cobra. From cobra, we push into the tops of our thighs and our hips, squeezing the muscles of the back body. Bring your hands a little closer to the chest, curl the toes under, float to tabletop, and then hips to heels, lift the knees off the ground, back to downward facing dog. Have a look at the top of your mat. See the feet again? Look at the top of your mat again. See your feet, and then start tiptoeing your feet all the way up. Look at that, knees are bent the entire time to the top of your mat. Forward fold. Draw breath in, experience it. Exhale. Bring your hands to the ground again. We're going to take the right knee down and back, and then the left. We're back in tabletop, and I'm going to ask you here just to take teeny tiny cats and cows. Okay, just the movement of the body in relationship to the breath, calming the heart muscle and relying on that beautiful synchronized breathing. And then take your knees apart, bring your toes together, slide the hips back, reach to the top of your mat, let your head float down, and come into a very restful child's pose, where now we let the muscles just kind of fall off the joints, fall off the tissue. Let your mouth in particular relax. Let the sides of your body relax. One more breath here. Exhale. And then just float yourself all the way back to seated. Bring your knees together. Slide your hips off your heels. And you're going to take your legs forward. And we're going to come all the way back, back, back onto your backs for your final posture, Shavasana. Hands come to your side. legs come out long. And I want you to notice how the lower back feels. If you feel any pain in the lower back, we need space there. So you're just going to bend your knees and put your feet on the ground. Okay, and then just stay here for a few breaths. Now I want you to kind of just rock your body side to side. So you're kind of finding that Cinderella spot, that perfect spot, even the upper body. Palms face up or down. And interesting enough, I'm going to get up and speak to you from closer up. Interesting enough, wherever your hands fall in Shavasana tells you something about the mudra you've chosen. So if your palms are up, this is the mudra of receiving, okay? That is asking you to kind of feel yourself, enlighten yourself. If your palms are down, that's the mudra of grounding. So it asks you to ground yourself and enjoy what it feels like to be supported from the earth. And as you close your eyes and relax your face and relax the muscles around your eyes and your ears, your temples, your shoulders, your chest, your back body, you feel the gravity affecting your heels. And there's a deep, deep sense of relaxing. That calmness remains. And for one more deep breath, send that calming nature in, let it fill your cup, and then just let out a sigh. And then slowly and mindfully lift your arms overhead, create the longest sense of you available. Legs are long, arms are long, chest is wide open. And then slowly relax the shoulders and just roll over to your right side or grab the backs of your legs. And then float yourself back into a seated posture where we feel our practice. And we draw our hands back to that beautiful, gentle hand mudra, Anjali mudra, the mudra of the heart. And from the place of sun, light, energy to that same place of sun, light, and energy in each of you, a resounding Shanti, 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 peace to all of you.